When handling, moving, and transporting dairy animals, the animal's comfort and safety, as well as the caretaker's safety, are of primary concern. Producers must ensure that animal caretakers are trained and qualified in proper handling techniques and in the appropriate use of restraint equipment. Animals should be handled humanely at all times. Cattle should be moved at a slow walk, particularly if the weather is hot or humid and if the flooring is slippery. It is particularly important to control the herd's speed in lanes and alleyways to prevent crowding or crushing at corners, gates, and other narrow places in a facility. To prevent startling of cattle when approaching from the back, a gentle voice is calming. Cattle have panoramic vision except directly behind them. Moving animals should be done calmly. Excited animals have increased levels of natural stress hormones, which can reduce the quality of milk and meat and increase susceptibility to disease. Also, animals should be handled by equipment appropriate for the procedure. Use of flags, plastic paddles, and a stick with ribbon attached to it are appropriate for handling animals that refuse to move through facilities, but only if minimal force is applied. Any force must be applied calmly. Dairy animals are creatures of habit and can sense when something different is happening or about to happen. Excessive or routine slapping or prodding indicates an underlying problem that requires management attention and correction. The problem may be that the caretaker is too anxious or inadequately trained in proper animal handling techniques. The facility is designed improperly, or the animal is sick or injured. The first problem may be corrected by additional training so that the caretaker understands animal behavior and uses acceptable handling techniques. Addressing the facility design problem may be as simple as completing mechanical improvements on fences and gates, or making general repairs. In all cases, use the least amount of force necessary to control the animal and still ensure the safety of herd mates and caretakers. Aggressive behaviors in dairy cattle can be modified and their impact reduced by using acceptable practices and restraint devices, including palpation rails, head chutes, squeeze chutes, and stanchions. Using equipment with emergency release devices is preferred. The National Dairy Farm Program recommends that those working in animal movement be trained on the principles of flight zones and flight distances to know the importance of controlling the animal movement in lanes, alleyways, and other parts of the complex. All workers and handlers should be properly trained in handling dairy animals and should have a basic understanding of typical dairy cattle behavior. Having a concept of the animal's flight zones or the animal's personal space, as shown in the flight zone diagram, can be a valuable tool when moving them. Nervous or restless animals will move away when a person enters the animal's flight zone or radius around the circle. An animal's flight zone will vary depending on how calm it is. Calm cattle have smaller flight zones and are easier to move. The flight zone gets bigger when an animal becomes excited. The flight zone is also bigger when you approach head-on. Animals should be loaded and unloaded for transit in a manner that minimizes stress and anxiety. The process of being moved, especially if it involves a loading chute, is a new and potentially stressful experience to many animals. 3 measures should be taken. 1. Train caretakers in proper loading and unloading practices. 2. Properly locate and design loading areas. And 3. Minimize the number of directional changes an animal must take. Animals should be transported before they become infirm or at increased risk of becoming non-ambulatory during transportation. Near-downer animals should be euthanized on farm and never shipped to a processing facility. Loading areas should be located near hospital pens and roads and be accessible in all kinds of weather. Loading ramps should not exceed a 25-degree angle and should provide non-slip flooring for good footing. They should be equipped with wing gates and a self-aligning bumper to prevent animals from stepping down between the ramp and the truck or from getting stuck between the side of a chute and the truck. If at all possible, eliminate the use of inclined loading chutes. Loading and unloading facilities should also be designed to minimize the number of directional changes an animal must take. Animals should not be forced to walk toward apparent dangers, such as a change in light intensity, that are likely to cause avoidance behavior. Because cattle have wide-angle panoramic vision and poor depth perception, facilities should have curved paths, be uniformly illuminated, and be a uniform color and texture to avoid sharp contrasts and shadows that may impede cattle flow. Single-file chutes, crowding pens, and other areas where cattle are crowded should have high, solid fences to prevent the animals from observing people, vehicles, and other distracting moving objects outside the facility. When transporting animals, facilities should be safe and comfortable to the animal. In-transit care should be provided by knowledgeable crews and drivers, and uniformity should be provided for the animals during loading and transport. The Master Cattle Transporter Guide, which can be found at tbqa.org, provides an extensive educational program on all aspects for transporting cattle. Trucks and trailers have an impact on animal care and require the same type of safety and comfort features of other facilities. These include a clean, disinfected truck or trailer when moving young stock or even cull cows, sides high enough to prevent animals from jumping over them, non-slip flooring that provides secure footing, ventilation adequate for weather conditions, proper bedding to protect animals from weather extremes, and adequate vehicle covering to protect animals from adverse weather. Providing shade, wetting animals, and bedding trucks with materials like sawdust or damp sand will protect animals in transit from heat stress. Truck flooring should be clean, in good repair, and covered with a material like sawdust or sand to prevent slipping and injury, and it then may be covered with clean, dry bedding. To protect animals from cold stress, provide wind protection from the front of the truck and use bedding material with high thermal insulative properties, such as sawdust or chopped straw, to prevent body heat loss to the truck floor. Trucks with tight sides should have exhaust stacks that prevent the animals from being exposed to fumes. Proper in-transit care will prevent animal injuries, bruises, and carcass damage, which can impair their well-being and value. Transport crews should be knowledgeable about animal care expectations and skilled in handling animals properly. Chances for injuries are reduced when animals on a truck are confined in several smaller groups. An animal should only be shipped in groups of uniform weight and species. Weak or unhealthy animals should only be shipped to a veterinarian and segregated from healthy ones during loading and during transit. An adequate amount of time for the trip should be allotted to include periodic checking of the condition of the animals. Drivers should start and stop the vehicle smoothly and slow down for curves and corners. If an animal falls in transit, it should be helped to its feet, provided that it does not pose a risk to the handler, and possibly segregated from the other animals for the rest of the trip. Provisions for water must be made, and provisions for feed should be made if the trip takes more than 24 hours. Feeding high-fiber dry feed for 48 to 72 hours before shipping reduces the moisture content of manure and increases air quality and animal comfort and hygiene. Follow any state regulations regarding frequency and amounts. Occasionally, an animal that is non-ambulatory may not be suitable for transport to a packing or processing facility. The National Dairy Farm Program recommends that producers use the top 10 considerations for culling and transporting dairy animals to aid in making such handling and transporting decisions. 1. Do not move non-ambulatory animals to market under any circumstances. 2. Make the decision to treat, to cull, or to euthanize animals promptly. Sick and injured animals should be segregated from the herd. 3. Delay transport of an animal that appears to be exhausted or dehydrated until the animal is rested, fed, and rehydrated. 4. Milk all cows that are still lactating just prior to transporting to a packing or processing facility. 5. Use a transportation company that is knowledgeable about your animal care expectations and provides for the safety and comfort of the animals during transport. 6. Do not transport animals to a packing or processing facility until all proper treatment withdrawal times have been followed. 7. Do not transport animals with a poor body condition, generally a body condition score of less than 2 on a 1 to 5 scale. 8. Do not transport animals that require mechanical assistance to rise and are reluctant or unable to walk, except for veterinary treatment. When using any handling device, abuse must not be tolerated. 9. Do not transport animals with bone fractures of the limbs or injuries to the spine. Animals with a recent fracture unrelated to mobility should be culled and transported directly to a packing or processing facility. And 10. Do not transport animals with conditions that will not pass pre-slaughter inspection at a packing or processing facility. If you're not sure, consult with your veterinarian.